You are listening to the Coins, Currency, and American History podcast, presented by Littleton Coin Company.
Every great civilization leaves behind its ruins, its art, and its heroes. But the story of America can be told through something smaller, something we can hold in our hands. A coin. Coins are the fingerprints of a nation. This is the story of the United States of America. From colonies to social experiment to global economic leader.
Economic stability depends on confidence. In the early 19th century, confidence rested on metal. Gold and silver were trusted. Paper was tolerable as long as it could be redeemed. When confidence faltered, the American financial system strained under the weight of redemption demands. The Panic of 1837 was one of the first national crises to reveal how fragile this balance could be. The roots of the panic stretched back several years. In 1833, Andrew Jackson ordered federal deposits removed from the Second Bank of the United States. Without federal funds, the bank's influence waned. State banks took its place, expanding credit and issuing notes far beyond their coin and bullion, or specie reserves. Land speculation surged across the West. In 1836, the charter of the Second Bank expired. The country entered a period of decentralized credit just as financial speculation reached its peak. In July of that same year, Jackson issued the Specie Circular. It required payment for public land to be made in gold or silver. It was intended to restrain speculation and protect land sales from inflated paper notes. But the country's supply of hard money was limited and unevenly distributed. Specie began to move toward the frontier, draining banks in the Northeast. The United States had never possessed abundant specie. Much of the metallic money in circulation came from foreign sources and older colonial coinage. So when specie moved west, paper notes remained behind. Banks tried to recall loans. Merchants tightened credit. The convertibility that sustained paper money began to weaken. The panic did not strike all at once. It spread through the economy, region by region, exposing the differences among three distinct American systems. The North was the first region hit. Its economy had shifted toward wages, factories, and commerce. Businesses depended on credit to pay workers and finance production. Urban workers depended on steady employment to meet daily needs. When specie reserves fell, banks reduced lending, notes became harder to redeem, factories slowed production, merchants canceled orders, unemployment rose. The Northern experience revealed the vulnerability of a wage labor system that required liquidity. Hard money discipline, whatever its intended virtue, imposed high cost on a region whose prosperity depended on circulating credit. Workers could not be paid in futures or in land. They needed reliable money. When that money tightened, the system seized quickly. Unlike the North, the South did not feel the full force of the crisis immediately. Cotton remained in demand, and British mills continued purchasing through the early stages of contraction. Planters borrowed against future crops as they had for decades. Cotton functioned as collateral for loans and as a commodity for export. This futures-based system provided temporary insulation. But the insulation depended on Britain. In late 1836 and early 1837, the Bank of England raised interest rates to defend its own gold reserves. British lenders reduced exposure to American cotton. As a result, prices plummeted. Southern planters who had expanded operations during the speculative boom found it difficult to meet obligations. Loans defaulted, and slave laborers, often used as collateral, were sold or moved further west. The Southern economy entered crisis through falling export prices rather than unemployment. The Southern crash arrived later than in the North, but it reached deeper. Dependence on a single international commodity magnified vulnerability. The system had worked as long as British demand remained strong. But when demand faltered, It exposed the risks of a future's economy. The West experienced the crisis in its own way. For years, the region had been the center of land speculation. Credit had allowed settlers to purchase land, improve farms, and build futures that would mature over time. Land was collateral, not currency. When the Specie circular restricted land purchases to gold and silver, the West faced an immediate contraction. Specie moved out of banks and into land offices. Credit dried up, settlement slowed, and amidst the crisis, a deeper question arose. How does a region invest in long-term growth without access to credit and without understanding when, or even if, the returns will arrive? The Western experience highlighted a recurring American dilemma. The future is rich with possibility, but possibility alone cannot be monetized without a bridge of credit. Without that bridge, development stalls. At the beginning of the panic, many Americans believed the crisis was the product of domestic policy. Jackson's opponents blamed the Specie circular. Supporters blamed reckless speculation. But events in London revealed that the United States was not an isolated economy. When British credit tightened and cotton prices fell, the crisis deepened. American banks suspended specie payments, international lenders withdrew funds, and panic became global. The United States learned a lesson that would repeat throughout the 19th century. A nation that trades with the world becomes exposed to the world's financial pressures, whether or not its political leaders intend it. By late 1837, banks across the country suspended specie payments. Paper notes continued to circulate, but without redemption, their value rested entirely on confidence. Contraction led to business failures, unemployment, foreclosures, and halted public projects. The crisis lasted for several years, leading some historians to describe the period as a depression rather than a short panic. Recovery arrived slowly in the early 1840s. Trade resumed, credit returned, but recovery did not resolve the issues that had produced the crisis. The United States remained without a central banking institution. Note issuance remained decentralized. Specie remained scarce. The Panic of 1837 didn't settle the debate over hard currency or banking. It intensified it. It showed that specie requirements could trigger contraction. It revealed how unevenly hard currency was distributed across regions. It demonstrated the fragility of a system that depended on foreign credit. And it produced a new behavioral response that would become increasingly important: hoarding. During the crisis, trust contracted along with credit. Individuals held onto gold and silver. This hoarding protected households, but harmed the system by depriving the economy of circulating coinage. The crisis taught Americans to protect themselves first. Markets and governments would have to adjust. In time, the economy recovered, but episodes of crisis became more frequent. A panic in 1837, another in 1839, more instability in 1857. As the country expanded, its financial system struggled to keep pace. Regional divisions between the North, South, and West grew clearer. Industrial wages, cotton futures, and frontier speculation operated in different worlds, yet shared the same currency. The United States was building a modern national economy without the institutions needed to guide it, and the consequences would become more serious as the 1850s approached. Next time, the panic recedes, but distrust remains. Americans lose confidence in banks and hoard hard currency, and the United States faces a difficult question. How can a country grow when the money that fuels its growth is pulled from circulation? We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Coins, Currency, and American History podcast presented by Littleton Coin Company. You can find out more about coins and currency in our free Learn Center at www.littletoncoin.com/learn. It's filled with fascinating facts about U.S. coins, world coins, ancient coins, paper money, and more, as well as helpful tips for collectors of all levels. You'll even find free collector guides, checklists, and virtual albums to help you get started and keep track of your growing collection. And while you're there, be sure to check out our online store. Visit www.littletoncoin.com today.